Podcasts on UNC-TV.org are made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC-TV.
Author Heidi Durrow's new book is a portrait of a young orphan and society's ideas of race, class, and beauty. Ms. Durrow recently sat down with North Carolina Bookwatch host D.G. Martin to talk about The Girl Who Fell from the Sky.
We'll talk about the aspirations that Rachel developed, that what she, as she grew up, and this confusing situation, what did she want to be and what did she want to do and how did she set about accomplishing?
Her greatest wish was to be one thing. She wanted to be understood and she wanted to be as complex as she was, and so she goes around trying to do and be one thing, which is a good student, and she becomes a big reader and the world kind of opens up to her in this way, and she thinks, if I'm excellent, then definitely I will be understood and this whole race thing won't matter. I think that's still true today, that if you strive for excellence, then ultimately maybe you can get beyond the shadow of race, maybe you can transcend the ways in which people may limit you because of your background, whether it be your racial background or your educational background or your economic background in many ways.
Well, you, in your own life, proved that you were the smartest person in the class. Stanford, Yale Law School, the best, arguably one of the best.
Columbia's Graduate School of Journalism.
Yeah,
I hate to leave them out.
No, we'll give them credit. But along the way, you've proved this in the same way that if maybe in the sequel Rachel will prove it in the same way. But does it work? Does that overcome this question about identity and wrestling with it, or you still just kind of have to deal with this every day?
You know, I still deal with it every day, but now at age 41, I feel more comfortable in letting people be uncomfortable when I answer the question, what are you? Because I still get that. What are you? Or
well, how do you answer it today? You don't say I'm the best speller. What do you say now?
I say I'm a story.
And then where does that lead the conversation, or does that just end it?
Sometimes it ends it, but they say, oh, that's so interesting, tell me more. Isn't that what we all want most as
that's
people?
What I would want to say is tell me more about your story.
What do you know? Instead of being the label, instead of being the check-marked box. So now I say, I'm a story, which is a way to connect with someone.
And then they say, tell me some of that story.
Yeah.
And what do you say? You say,
how much time do you have?
I just say,
how much time do you have?
In some respects, it's an opener to say, okay, let's talk some more. In others, it's a put-off. Like, I've got a story, and you move on to the next cocktail conversation.
It certainly depends on how I say it, and it depends on how I'm asked, of course. But I like to offer it as a way to begin a conversation.
Well, this is, to me, I'm just fascinated with this mixed race. And you mentioned President Obama. All of a sudden, mixed race is the way to be. Is the way. That's the way you kind of that you have a story to tell, and you have the experiences that take you around. So why don't you say, well, my mom's a Dane and my dad's African American, and you're uncomfortable a little bit with that sort of straight answer.
Well, I think it doesn't say enough oftentimes, although it is something I do say. I've very much come to understand that my identity is fluid, given the situation, the moment, the day, the time, the color I'm wearing. And so it is something I have said. Sometimes I joke and I say, I'm an Afro-Viking. That gets things going.
Yeah, well, that would be what you would say to invite a real conversation about it when you're feeling positive about the situation that you're in. But you have a special situation that sets you apart in some respects. All of us are set apart in some respects.
Yeah.
And many women are wrestling with the same sort of changing times in which some opportunities are really wide open for them, and some, about the time they think it's wide open, the door shuts. And so do you identify, in the struggles, do you identify more with yourself as a woman encountering these challenges, or as a mixed race person in an ambiguous situation?
It's such a great question, and I'm not able to divide it. It's all a piece of a whole. Part of the struggle for Rachel in the book ultimately is she's dealing with this idea of identity, racial and cultural identity, but at the same time that's happening, she's dealing with this idea of sexuality, of coming into her young womanhood without her mother and without great models and role models for her. There's something that becomes conflated in those things, and so she becomes exoticized. One of the things I wanted to write about in the book is this idea of young women trying to struggle against the idea that their value comes from what other people see in them, that their value comes from their beauty. Their value really can be what they assign themselves as opposed to what other people assign them. I think it's even more difficult today. I grew up in the 1980s, and of course it's always been important to be pretty or beautiful, but now the young girls have to be sexy, which is just absolutely shocking to me. The standards are so high. I met with some young kids in Miami just last week, and I asked them this question. I said, you know, when I was growing up, it was hard because I felt like what was most important about me was the way I looked. Is that still true? And they all looked away and they started to laugh, and they said, well, we live on Miami Beach, so we know exactly what you're saying. And they think it's tough, you know, and it's hard for young women to actually say, I'm going to be smart, and I value that, and you may think it's more important for me to get my hair done and my nails done, but that's not so important to me. I have a future that I want to direct myself.
You can see all of DG's conversation with author Heidi Durrow tomorrow at 9:30 p.m. and again on Sunday at 5.
Podcasts on UNC-TV.org are made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC-TV.